appreciate you coming. I think this is marvelous that you've shown enough interest to get out on a Saturday morning when you could be home in the recliner, okay? I appreciate that effort. Second of all, I want you to know that this is kind of a genealogy 101, and I know there's some people, especially Juanita, who have already done a lot of genealogy work, and for your sake, I'll try not to dwell on the very elementary stages of genealogy, but for those who have never done it, they need to know where to start. Is there anybody here who has never even tried to do your genealogy? Okay, so we do have some people that need to know where to start, how to start. I tell everybody that it's only natural that we want to know which ancestor was a king. Okay, we want to go there right off the bat. My second thing I tell them is, before you jump in the deep end of your gene pool, do your work. Start at the beginning. Okay, so the beginning is to write down what you know, which is why, I'm going to use yours as an example, okay? Which is why I gave you this. Most people don't know all 5 generations of their family. You don't have to fill the whole thing out today. I just want to show you how to do it, and then you can take it home and work on it, okay?
I have pencils too,
yes.
if I want a pencil.
Oh, okay, fabulous. You know what, bless your heart, I did not do that, although I do have some pens. I think I laid them on that bench next to Carol, somewhere there. There's some pens. Who would be number 1 on your chart? Yes, we're number 1, right? So you would start by filling out your name next to the number 1. And then you would fill in the information below that, okay? Number 2 and number 3 would be your parents. Does not matter if your dad is on the left or right. It doesn't matter about your mom. They're equal, right? We all know. All right. Then above each one of those, yes, Denise.
So I write down me, Denise Halley.
Yes.
Do you put your maiden name there?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. With genealogy, always use the birth name, okay? You can add to it if you want, in parentheses or slash, dash, whatever you want. But the birth name should always be either the only one or in parentheses so that you know that's the birth name, okay? Most records will be in your birth name, okay? So, oh, and as hard as it is for me, because my dad would have just died at this, in today's world, we must also use birth names sometimes for men, because men are allowed to be married, same-sex marriages. If a man marries a man and one of them changes their name, then we have a maiden name for the man as well. I had to fill out my brother's maiden name on his death certificate because you don't want to make mistakes in identifying people. Okay, I'll pretend my husband's sitting back there. I can yell then. I wish I had $1 for every time I heard that one. Okay, so you can see how the chart works, right? You can fill it out now while we're sitting here and you can still listen, or you can take it home and fill it out. It makes no difference to me. But that is the first step in doing your genealogy, to write down what you know. And then, I got to get my, Carol, can you reach my, I have a stack of cards in there, no cards.
Mother, is that closer? You want to be closer together?
Yeah, that's what I need. Thank you, dear.
There's a chair in here. And it has a cushion on it.
Well, you can come up here. You can sit by us, Margaret.
Here, Margaret, go.
So the first step in genealogy is to write down what you know. The second step is to find somebody who can answer the questions that you have that you don't know the answers to on the tree chart there, okay? Now, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm going to tell you that usually it's the oldest person in your family who can answer those questions. But if Aunt Gladys sits in the corner all day, she's probably not the one you want to ask. Okay?
The recliner's couch.
Now, I will also say that sometimes, even though somebody, because of Alzheimer's or whatever, they don't seem responsive, don't rule them out, okay? Still ask them the questions, because there are lucid moments for many people. You want to grab all you can grab, and at the very least, you're going to show respect and love to Aunt Gladys, because they still deserve that, okay?
And this is just, if you're going to someone with Alzheimer's, morning is a much better time than
Oh, thank you.
afternoon or evening.
Yeah, I'm the only one with Alzheimer's in my family, so I did not know that. Okay. Okay.
This is why we're meeting at 10.
Yes. Christina says this is why we're meeting at 10. The other sheet that I handed out to you is just suggested questions that you might ask that person in your family, so that you're not just sitting there saying, okay, take that with you and use it as a guideline of questions that you can ask your person. I will also say that as a grandmother myself, and I know there's lots of grandmothers in here, if my grandchild came to me and said, could I ask you some questions? Oh, baby. Yes. Spend that time with somebody, because it means a lot to them. And when you're done, consider sending them a thank you card or maybe even a little gift, and then check back with them later and tell them how much you appreciate the information and what else you found out since then. They'd like that, okay? So that's the second step in genealogy. The third step would be to do research. Now, most people think, oh, Ancestry.com or whatever search engine you use. Ancestry is wonderful. I use it all the time. They love me. But, again, you need to learn to swim before you jump in the deep end, okay? If you spend money on a membership to Ancestry and you don't know the ropes of how to do your research, you're going to use up your first 6 months membership backtracking because you followed the wrong limb. All right, so do your research first before you join. And then after you join, I've got some tips and hints for you, which I'll cover the next time we get together, which is a week from today, same time. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, we're done. Oh, just kidding, just kidding. Okay, so documents. I have several genealogists in here who will tell you, document everything, okay? If your mama says you were born on a Sunday at 3:37 p.m., it's probably true, okay? That's a first-hand knowledge, somebody who was there, okay? And that's credible, but write it down that that's your source. That's where you got your information. Hopefully, you'll also locate, if you don't already have, a birth certificate to go with it. Birth certificates can be found in a lot of places. If you're from Missouri, you can go to the local health department, I think, right? Because they've helped us with daycare. You can get it from the local health department. If you go to the internet, you can find it on Missouri Digital Birth and Death Records. I'm going to pass these out if you need, or there's room on the bottom of the paper if you need to write that down. In Missouri, you can get records from Missouri
Do you spell that out, or is it M-O?
It's spelled out on the website. Digital birth and death records. Sorry.
And is that spelled out?
It is, all of it is spelled out. But probably, you know how the internet works, probably if you get it close to it, you'll catch it,
pull it up.
okay?
So, could you say that again? Missouri's?
Missouri Digital Birth and Death Records,
Thank you.
okay?
.org.
That's all I typed in. I didn't put anything else in except what I just told you, and it took me to that, okay? There's a lot of records available on that site.
Oh, yeah.
There's military and birth and death, and I don't remember what all else.
So other
That's-
states could be something totally different.
I'm guessing,
Iowa is, you go to the county you were born, and the county recorder has the
Yes.
birth record.
every state, the county recorder is the one who can help you out with that. Yes, Eric?
From what I understand, prior to 1906 in Missouri, it was up to the doctor to submit the birth record or not. So it's a hit and miss if you're
It is,
earlier than '06 in Missouri. I don't know about others.
right. There are several different time frames that are difficult to get records from. One is about the time, during the Civil War, people were involved with other things, okay? They didn't, record keeping is scanty there. And you want to remember that all your ancestors lived in their time, not yours. So if you're looking for marriages that happened during colonial American times, you're probably not going to find them online unless you look for church records. They were very good about church records because that at the time was their big resource, okay? So moving on, birth records, I got mine from the county clerk. That's their job to do that. A lot of places have a small fee involved. Some, if you want it mailed, you have to pay an additional. There's two different kinds of records. There's the certified, and then there's the genealogical record. The genealogical record will be cheaper because you don't have to have it certified and all that. And so you have to decide. Now, I chose, when I recently sent off for my mother's birth certificate, I chose to have it certified. I paid the little premium because I want to frame it. You know, I want it to be nice. So it's your choice.
Lois,
Yeah.
on microfilm, there is a birth register that goes way back. And families were required to register everybody in their household, their births or whatever. And it goes, a lot of them were back registered.
Awesome. So they picked up some of those that weren't done
A
before.
lot of those way
Okay.
back. And it's just a birth register, but it tells you, the doctor, what child in the family that was, their birth, when they
Yeah.
submitted it.
And where is that again, Juanita?
I've got the microfilm.
Okay, everybody just call Juanita.
Library have it? The library might have it. I bought a lot of microfilm from the state.
Okay,
So I
okay.
have several. Have you got a microfilm reader here?
No, but the library.
Will it print?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Okay, but I transcribed that into book form.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna go down to Juanita's and see what all she
Welcome
has.
to come down. I've got an open house down there. It's closed, but it's open house.
There are a lot of places that you can get birth records besides the ones that I just mentioned. But to get a verified birth record is most important because, let me tell you, in my own family tree, there were something like a dozen Patrick Humes. Okay? Did I follow the wrong one before? Yeah. Did it take me weeks to straighten that out? Yeah. So you want to make sure that you document everything, prove everything. On my family tree, if I can't prove it, I add an asterisk or a star by their name, and then that way I know to go back. Right now, Ancestry.com has a thing on their program where they rate your percentage of accuracy based on whether or not you documented. That's so helpful. Now, I have like my great-great-grandfather's siblings and his wife's siblings. There's a reason for that. And I didn't verify all of them because I just have them there for reference more than anything. And my percentage of accuracy was 80%. I think that's telling,
Good.
you know, because I'm sure that 80%, more than 80% of the people on that tree are pretty well proven that they're my direct ancestors. Okay. You can also find, like if you don't know when somebody was born and you're trying to find their birth record, most places will ask for the date of birth. There's more than one way to pluck a buzzard. Go to findagrave.com. It may not be a certifiable source because that information comes from a lot of different places, but what's on their tombstone is most likely correct.
Yeah.
Okay?
Not always.
So, not always, I said, but most likely it gives you a place to start, okay? Take the date that they used and add that to your search for the birth certificate. That'll help you, okay? What else can you find from findagrave.com? You can find the day they died. Sometimes, and this is very important, sometimes the genealogist in the family will take, like my dad, and list all of his siblings and his parents and all of their siblings and go on as far as you can. I've added that to all my family in Find a Grave. If my source isn't right and you share my source to your tree, you're sharing false information. So you have to make sure that if you accept somebody else's information, whether it's from Find a Grave or Ancestry or the neighbor or whatever, if anybody gives you information without the documentation, it's your job to prove it, okay? Most likely, I have one person on my tree that I know is my ancestor. I personally know that he is my ancestor, but I cannot prove it. That's the only person in my whole tree that I have not proved. The records just don't exist for him. He died somewhere during the Civil War. So, okay. Obituaries is another place you can find information. It will many times tell when they were born, where they were born, their parents, their siblings, the people that died before them. I mean, there's a lot of information
What was that? What was that at?
in an obituary. Okay, now here's a plug. I'm not being paid to say this. I subscribe to the Unionville Republican because it is my personal historian. Okay? All kinds of books are in the library that have been put together, binders, that have been put together by the people at the museum and the Genealogy Society. They have worked countless hours cutting clippings out of the newspaper and putting them together and indexing them. So if you're looking for Hume, which is my maiden name, I can enter Hume and it'll tell me page 57, page 92, and I can find those clippings. This is an awesome, awesome thing that the men and women of the two societies do. They are your local historians, and the newspaper makes that possible. The newspaper cannot survive without subscriptions. I get a year for $32.50 or something like that. Karen, do you know what the price of a
I
newspaper?
think we went up to 36 because. And I may be wrong, 'cause I don't do this.
You know what?
research.
$36
That's nothing.
It's
a
hard to get-
year?
It's hard to get newsprint, it's coming from Canada.
Oh,
if
yeah.
there's one, it may go up again.
We might have that. But you know what? It's still a bargain. This is for a year, and it comes right to your door every week. Yes.
And you can get it online also.
Yes, you
So if you
can.
wanna throw away your newspaper, you can get online and go back
Absolutely.
in the
You go
archives.
to Putnam County advantage slash
Yes.
advantage-preservation.com. You can go back to the 1800s, 1850s, and you
Okay.
can find
Say that again.
obituaries, information about people, things that happened. Now, the search engine's a little clunky, you'll get some false drops, but just hang with it and try some different word combinations.
And that one's
Oh, Putnam County
Putnam County dot
advantage-preservation.com.
advantage hyphen preservation.com.
And I think you can get the link to that at the library's
Yes, it used to
website.
be on the Historical Society.
I think it's
No, it was on the library and they took it off, but I think they put it back on.
I think it's still on there.
Thank you for that, Karen.
And it gets free, but the regular subscription online costs a little extra.
Sure, as it should, because if you're doing it online,
It's so
they,
handy.
right. Yes,
I recently started doing obituaries out of the paper, and then I found out that they didn't used to charge for obituaries, and now they do charge $50, and a lot of people weren't having them put in. I'm from Milan,
yeah.
and so I had to go to Rush Myers and go back through and
Did
fill
that happen to
in.
you?
Yeah.
You're nodding your head?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. That's sad.
I wasn't
Because
either.
it really is a treasure trove of information for genealogists. However, you know, all of us, if any of you have not been in business before, it may be harder to understand. I have owned my own business, and I can tell you that everyone thinks, well, you own your business, you're rich, you know. You can afford to do this. And who is it that pays for all the sports activities and stuff around? It's the local businesses.
Yeah.
Right? They need their dimes and nickels just as much as we do, or they'll go out of business. So I personally will pay whatever the Unionville Republican asks for a subscription. And if I want to put an obit in there, I personally will pay for that because I know the value of it, the importance of it as a genealogist, okay? And I want everybody else to have that same treasure trove of information that the newspaper provides. So,
I'm gonna throw in something here. We did raise the price to $50 because printing costs went up and we've been.
There you go.
$50 forever, whereas a short blurb, say in the Des Moines or the Kansas City or somewhere will cost you upwards of $300. So
Wow.
there's your.
Wow.
I've had people go, really? It's just that because I paid $285 for.
yeah.
I would add one thing. From my previous business, if we needed to document that somebody had owned it and died, if we couldn't find obituaries, it was tough. And you can't move forward until you know that Joe Smith is gone.
Right.
What people are doing now is because of the cost. They don't do the obituaries, and a lot of people don't have funeral services. I don't
You
want
know what?
anything.
That's true. Things have changed.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and it's difficult for genealogists, but it's difficult for some specific businesses.
But you can go to the funeral home's website and you can, because
But
they'll
you have to
print it.
know if they died and where they died.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of
Yeah.
tracked, it was like, I knew where they were at, and so I Googled funeral homes in that area, and I went, and then I kind of went and thumbed through, and I found the one I was looking for.
Funeral homes, too, have their own records. So if you don't find an obituary, that is one place you can look. And again, findagrave.com. Sometimes the funeral homes will, when they print those little booklets, we did our mom's obit on that. And then I copied that and pasted it to the Find a Grave site. You'll find other people will do that too. That, like I said, there's more than one way to pluck a buzzard, okay? The county recorder has marriage records. In my case, I recently requested a copy of one, and they said that the first copy before a certain date, the first copy will be free. I said, okay. They do charge, nothing is usually very expensive if you want a record, okay? Church records, I mentioned that earlier. I know our church records everything. When you missed in April, no, I'm kidding.
Oops.
They record births, baptisms, marriages, and deaths, okay? So there's a whole bunch of information in church records. Family Bibles, you know, that's a tradition that people don't do anymore, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
I have in my possession my mother's family Bible, and in it, of course, is written my mom's name and her sister. And her mother, Nellie, died when Mom was 4 years old and Stella was 6 months old. So that's one of the few things that I have that's actually from her hand, you know, and it's priceless to me to touch that. The reason I mention this is not because I think you would find a lot of Bibles to look through, but of course you might. But I encourage you to write in your own Bible for your next generation, okay? Just a thought. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm quite sentimental.
Yeah.
Yes?
Another thing I found out in researching, we were on our own Iowa someplace at a genealogy library. They had family Bibles that people had donated. And actually, if you could prove your relationship, they let you have the Bible.
Oh, wow, that gave me the chills.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was, I think someplace in Iowa. I don't know. I've been too many places.
Yeah. Well, you know, there are neat
But
places.
It's something to check on, something to ask
Yes,
about.
yes.
How do you find a genealogy? What did you say you went to?
It was a genealogy library.
You know, Gloria, that might be something that we should do at our roundtable sometime is try to come up with some resources for people in other areas. You know, here in Northeast Missouri, I find about half of our records in my family are Missouri and half are Iowa, you know.
Another thing let me throw out.
Sure. I appreciate
I
this.
have found deaths, 3 different deaths for a person, 3 different sources for the same person. They do not, your cemetery records, your tombstone records, your obituaries, and your death certificate do not agree.
Yeah, that does happen.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Another thing, if you're going into a courthouse and asking, if you're trying to find adoptions, okay, don't ask for adoptions. There's the old record.
Yeah.
But you can ask for a name change.
Okay, I'm not sure I follow you on that, Juanita. Okay, you
They
can,
publish name changes.
published name changes.
They can be published, but adoptions are a sealed
Sealed
document.
deal.
Okay, Eric.
She's correct about sealed records other than in Missouri. 6 years ago, the legislature opened the adoption records. The only reason I know I'm adopted and I got mine.
Right, oh, good.
My original birth certificate. Now, I don't know, Juanita, if the adoption records that were sealed on the state level, if somebody other than, I had to document who I was and send that in. And there was a fee.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
And it took, but Missouri now is an open state, is my point.
I think that's wonderful, and I would advocate if I could, I don't, you know, for open records everywhere, because even when I was a teenager, the thought came to me that there may be people marrying their brother or sister.
Yeah.
That happens.
Because Yeah.
They don't know.
They don't know. That's right.
Well, the reality was, I don't mean to take up your time, but my birth mother lived 28 miles away from my home.
That happens a lot. That happens
And
a lot.
worked at the local Kmart in St. Joe, and I have been in that store hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times and seen her. She worked at the service counter.
Isn't
And
that
didn't know.
something?
And she lived in the same town that my aunt and uncle lived in,
Over there. Wow.
and they didn't know each other.
Okay, now, this is on a personal level, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But I'm curious, what was your feeling when you found your birth mother, the information?
I cried.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, people don't realize what a trauma it is to not know about your family.
The bad thing about it was 1964 is when I was born. They weren't required to list a father.
Yeah, right.
So I have my mother's maiden name, but I have no idea who the father is. I got to meet the family. That was traumatic,
Yeah,
and I'm so very, very, very grateful that I was adopted into the family I was adopted
there
into.
you go.
Yeah.
There
I
you go.
had such a much better life than I would have had I lived.
Yeah, but it's still important to know.
It
Yeah.
is.
And I gotta tell you, that's part of the reason why I do genealogy. My brother started it and I caught the flame. Most of you people have either grown up in Unionville or lived here at one time or another or have family here. How many of you have ever heard my maiden name, Hume, other than from my family?
Yeah.
There weren't any others. We were the only ones. And people would ask us, what kind of name is Hume?
I'm serious?
I don't know. Well, what's your guess? I had no clue. My dad's real father was killed when Dad was young. Grandma remarried and had another family and another religion. She married a Catholic. Grandma's first husband wasn't Catholic. So we were always kind of on the fringe, Dad was the oldest, older than his siblings because there were a few years past before Grandma remarried. And so he was the oldest, and as an 18-year-old with a 15-year-old brother or 14, 13, whatever they were, you don't have a lot in common. Then Dad went to the military, and so always he was on the edge. I mean, accepted, but still on the edge of the family. Paul Wickless, I was telling Karen earlier that Andy's only regret was, y'all remember Paul Wickless, the superintendent at the school? He asked Andy one time, now I know you knew Andy,
Yeah.
and everybody that I tell this story to can relate. Paul asked Andy, are you related to the Humes from Powersville? And Andy's answer was, I don't know. Isn't that so, Andy? He did not say, and this was his regret, oh, I don't know, why? Because we didn't know where Jack Hume, my dad's father, we didn't know anything about him and his family. Paul came from the same family. His grandmother was a Hume. And he knew a lot of those people. I get the chills even when I talk about it. My personal regret was that for 35 years, my grandma and I lived during the same time on this earth. And do you think I ever once asked her about Jack Hume?
Yeah.
I never thought to. She remarried when Dad was young. Grandpa Steele was the only grandpa I ever knew. I never even thought about my other grandpa.
Yeah.
Until this all happened with Andy, and he started his genealogy before internet. Can you imagine? Okay, I know some of you have done lots of genealogy work without the help of the internet. It sucks. There's no way around it. So when Andy did our genealogy, he found our immigrant. And that's as far as he could go because Alexander Hume came from Scotland. So I took Dad and we went to Scotland and I found out the rest of it, okay?
Cool.
And Eric, I thought of you at the time, believe it or not, because we're driving down this road and the bushes and the brick walls or stone walls and stuff are high. You can't see anything except straight ahead. I knew where Hume Castle used to be, but I didn't know if it still existed. They said it was in ruins. We come to an intersection, and at that intersection I can see a long way away. And there on the top of that hill was Hume Castle.
I'll be darned.
And my dad went, I said, breathe, Dad, breathe. For him, it was like meeting his birth family.
Yeah.
He was a Hume, and he had reason to be proud of it. And he felt like he was coming home, and that was probably the best gift that man ever could have had, okay? So that's why people who do genealogy get hooked, okay? We find those little tidbits. I found a tidbit in Greg's family history. I won't get personal. I'm not
fine.
going
I
to
don't
give away
care.
any. But one of your ancestors came. I do this sometimes to do somebody else's genealogy just for the fun of it. One of your ancestors came from Ohio with his wife and their 6-week-old baby girl by covered wagon from Ohio to Missouri. And she kept a journal. And in that journal, she said that their baby only cried once
Come on.
the entire trip.
My babies wasn't any relation, couldn't have been. No.
Those are the pieces of frosting on your cake, okay, when you find things like that. I found a gazillion really fun stories in my ancestry. Tabby Jones, has she got any? Yeah. She has an ancestor who was a very, very important chief in the Indian tribe. I can't remember the name,
Something, Connor something, started with C.
Yeah. Cannon Shea or something like that.
Something like that, I couldn't pronounce it.
And he was one of the last Indians in this, when the settlers were trying to get them to sign off their land, deed over their land to the colonists. They tried to get him to do that with his tribal lands, and he refused to do it, and they told him, you either sign it over or we're going to execute you. And he said something to the effect, beautiful words, I'm going to mess this up, I know, but he said something about it is better with his heart not to be soft and not to speak words that aren't worthy of him. And he refused, and they killed him.
Dang.
Okay, so I just get the chills. Can I guarantee that each of you will find a wonderful story in your family tree? Can't guarantee it, but I can guarantee you'll have a lot of fun looking, okay? So, any questions at this point? Any comments?
Well, I made 2 pots of coffee and I don't want it to go to waste, so do we just
Okay,
take a little
okay.
break?
And there's water and there's cookies.
Okay, I am going to go further into the research details, same time, same place, next Saturday, okay? I don't want to get you too far into things.
Overload our brain.
Right.
I want to add one thing too.
Yes.
That's how I am, and you can't shut me up. The census records, and we have a lot of the old census records. Now, some of them don't have a first name, they just have an initial, so you're kind of like, this is probably the area they were in, but that's another resource.
But you know what, I'm glad you mentioned that, because census records often will, they go like from one house to the next, to the next, to the next. So, because it lists the neighbors, I can remember years ago, boy, this was years ago, George and Mabel Howdeshelt lived next to us on the farm when we lived south of here. And my stomach's growling, I needed breakfast. So on our census, when we were there, I'm sure George and Mabel were listed. Now, anybody who, in our family who's doing research and knew that when we lived on the old Morgan place, George and Mabel lived next door, they go, oh, well, then that's the right one. So census records, yes, they give you a lot of information, Eric.
You may cover it next Saturday, I don't know, but the other record that's really, really important and has a lot of information are your military records too.
Yes, and some of those can be found at that same Missouri Records
Okay.
site that they have military records there too. And it's important to know that they were in the military. And that's another thing that you can find on findagrave.com. A lot of times they'll, you know, have a marker next to the tombstone, and it's nice. I want to add one thing here real quick. On Ancestry, when you get to that point where you join Ancestry, you can leave a lot of notes on your profiles. Each person has a profile. And you want to remember that other people may have access to your tree. You may want it that way. You can keep it private too. In the process of doing genealogy, you may find grandma's secret.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, or sensitive information. I would recommend that you never enter any of that information onto your site or in your records at home. You can have a secret place for those things for your own knowledge, because we don't want to hurt anybody. There's no need to add to somebody's profile, he was really a jerk, okay? Nobody else needs to know that.
Everybody else knows.
They probably know it anyway, that's right, Darlene. Okay, let me just real quick, make sure that I've got,
That nobody puts that on yours.
okay, church records, family Bible, DAR and SAR. They have so many records. If you want to join, Margaret, maybe you can take just a,
I would be happy to,
okay.
very happy to. Daughters of American Revolution. That is a national organization, and in order to become a member, you have to prove generations. And as a result, we try to do things for the community, for the nation even. Good Citizen Award. We give that to seniors in 4 different school districts. We do lots of things. We even recognize the Rotary Club here lately because of their historical preservation. But if you would like to become a member, we have our registrar over here, and she would be happy to assist you in any way. And Lois is going to become one of our new members, and so very pleased. But
Eric?
What kind of records does the DAR
That's-
have?
I'm glad you asked that.
I mean, genealogically speaking.
Yeah,
Well, you have to prove.
Right.
Through census, wills, and marriage records, death records, whatever you can come up with. But it really helps if you already know who your patriot was.
Okay.
the
But I
patriot
mean,
being the Civil War, or
Civil.
the Revolutionary War veteran.
Revolutionary, yeah, not civil.
Right, but you have a database somewhere, is it online, do you have to go to a facility?
You can go to dar.org,
Okay,
and it will show you where you can start building your line.
okay, so if you are able to join, or my wife,
Right.
because I'm not a daughter, duh.
But they have signs of the Revolution too,
Yeah.
okay.
If you go to the site, then is everybody's information open to you or not? No?
Don't they have some books at the library too, Linda, that, on the DAR? I think they do, I've seen them.
No, I'm not familiar with your library.
I think they do, Eric, in the
Okay.
genealogy room.
I think
Yeah.
you can request for a fee, you can request a copy of files, I think.
But you can get a lot of information, because like when I first went to a meeting with you a long time ago, and as soon as I said Samuel Kincaid, she looks it up and she goes, oh yeah, because other people descended from him, and there were all these records. And so I was, you know, you can connect with other relatives, which I'll give you more on this the next time we meet, but the siblings on your tree, you know, like you've got your direct ancestors, and then they have siblings. If you find their names on something, write them down, put them on there, because sometimes a person on Uncle Daniel's side did a lot of research, and they've dug up a lot of records. Well, if Daniel's father, if he has a birth certificate of his father, he's going to have a birth certificate of your ancestor too. So, and a lot of times you'll find pictures of your family members from, you know, I mean, if you've got an uncle in New York and one in California, and the one in New York has all the family around him, he's going to have more family pictures. Yeah. So, you know, that's one of the side benefits of ancestry, but we'll get to that later. Okay, I think I've covered everything. Probates and wills.
Lois, just one comment.
Yes.
If anybody is interested, here is a book that would be able to view to see what we do, and we'll be very happy to assist you in any way.
What they're doing at the DAR is completely in line with any patriotic American citizen. So check it out.
Cool.
You forgot to mention the military, the veterans.
Oh, yes, we do assist them in many ways.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
Yeah,
Well, that's something we all believe in too, I think.
yes, they
So,
need all the support we
yeah.
can get, but. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
The circuit clerk at the courthouse has copies of probates and wills, and sometimes it gets down in your research to checking something like that out. I don't think there's anything else other than stuff that I'm going to be saying later, but I'd say that join Ancestry or something like that eventually, but first do everything you can without doing that. And
Well, I'm just saying join Ancestry, but Find a Grave is free.
yes, Find a Grave is free, and that's why I recommend that you start there.
So is family search.
These family,
Family search? See, I didn't know that, so I'm glad you mentioned that. There are a lot of places to search for free. I recommend you do all of those, any of those, all of those, before you pay, okay?
Yeah.
I enjoy Ancestry, so I do that, but, okay, I'm gonna leave you with a poem that I have on my desk above where I work on Ancestry. And it says, if you could see your ancestors all standing in a row, would you be proud of them, or don't you even know? But here's another question which requires a different view. If you could meet your ancestors, would they be proud of you?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. I don't have any idea where I'm at on time. I'm willing to talk all day. Is there anybody who needs a little bit more help before they go home and start on this?
I have a question.
Yes.
On Find a Grave,
Mm-hmm.
how can someone add information to that person?
Yeah, you have to be a member of Find a Grave. You
Remember your whatever.
Yeah, they assign you a number, your member number such and such. And then there's a place where you can suggest
Yes.
edits. I can help you with that, Darlene.
David Pipes,
Mhm.
Dave Pipes' son, asked me one time, I've looked on Find a Grave, and all of his mom's siblings are listed, except the oldest girl, which was my mother-in-law.
And she's passed?
Yes.
Okay,
And he said, how do I get
Okay.
entered in that?
in Find a Grave, you must be an approved member to make edits. But once you are an approved member, you also have to work on everything by sequence. You can't add a parent to a child. You have to add the child to the parent, I think, right, Carol?
Yes.
You have to go one way or the other.
Order.
So,
And isn't Find a Grave all people putting it in? I mean, it's
yes, it
not-
is. Yes, it is. And I'm glad you said that. I thought I said it earlier, but I do this a lot, and so I forget sometimes what I've said one place. And on Find a Grave, the information you find on the tombstone, I know I said it because Juanita said it isn't always right, but what you see on the tombstone is, if it's not right, it's at least close, okay? And a lot of times people will copy and paste the obituary to that site. And a lot of times people will enter the, like you said, Darlene, the names of siblings that have passed. And you can get a lot of information, but that information comes from people. LDS, how many of you have you ever looked at the LDS records?
Yeah.
Okay, don't go there again.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, Cindy
There's
has.
probably everybody who does not know how to do genealogy has contributed. There's a lot of people who do know genealogy and how to do it correctly, and they've contributed too. So there are correct things on there, but there's a lot that isn't,
Incorrect.
and I have found all of those. That's one of the reasons I spent weeks trying to straighten out my tree, because I accepted it. And so I don't do that anymore.
Always look for two sources.
That's right, absolutely. Yes, Karen?
Probate records, we're at the index here, but we have the old original probate will, they, 1945 to 1978.
Okay, okay.
Sheets.
Could everybody just listen just for a second, because what she's saying is important, but I had trouble hearing you too, Karen.
Okay, we have a probate index from 1845 to 1978, and we have some of those records because the courthouse sent them over here when they ran out of.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
So,
Okay, so what will genealogists find in probate records?
you're gonna find who they willed stuff to, I don't know what other pertinent information is there, I also came across.
May find
We're digging through
siblings,
boxes.
spouses,
You will find, well,
We're digging through boxes and stuff, and I found, and this had to be, some of it is information like a minor child when the parents passed away, who they chose to go with.
Yes.
There's some on, this guy had this wife and then died.
Yeah.
I
That's,
didn't know how to label it, so it's a notebook that says genealogy.
Yeah.
That's how I found that one ancestor of mine that I cannot prove, but I know he is. That's how I found it, was through a probate, just so you know.
Anyway, that's just, that's on that.
some of those old probate records. Big families sometimes had differences within the families. And so I changed the spelling of my name from yours.
Right. We have some crows with a W and some with just a W and some with an E. We have some Fitz Joneses because they didn't like to be just Joneses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have people who were Fitz-Joneses to begin with, and they dropped the Fitz because of the
Yes.
discrimination.
Yes.
So, and you know what, when you get into researching names, try to be a little liberal if you're not getting results, because I went to Ireland and I went to a cemetery there, and I saw a tombstone for a guy and his sister, and their names were spelled differently because in the, I think it was from the 1700s maybe, and few people of the population could read and write English. So the information was written down by the parish priest. And anybody who's Catholic knows that changes often, you know? So one priest spelled their last name this way, and the next one spelled their last name this way. So they were brother and sister, but their names didn't match. You have to be a little liberal thinking. I've seen your
Also, the
name spelled
census records,
a lot of different
some of
ways.
those, if you don't find the last name you're looking for, try a little bit different spelling because they also, the census takers,
Yeah.
especially those 1800 ones, they got creative.
I got
Sounds like it should be spelled this way.
Yes. I gotta tell you, census records are great for that too, because, you know, the enumerator, wrote things down kinda how we heard it. I have, you know, the Humes of Powersville, James LaBelle Hume was one of them, and on the census record one year for him, they asked him where his mother was, or where his dad was born or something, maybe where he was born, and he said Powersville. And the census taker wrote it down, Parsvill.
Ouch. Yeah, ouch.
So you have to kind of take it all into consideration. Yes.
There is an incident in Pollock area, a name. There was a family moved in, and the kids all went to school there. The teacher couldn't keep the kids straight. She changed the spelling of their last name.
Oh my.
So that she could keep her records straight.
Oh,
At
no.
least 3 different spellings, and I think I have come up with 4.
That
Wow.
teacher flunked.
Records, there are cemetery records. There's tombstone records, like granite work.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know whether you've got that book or not.
Nope.
Is it book? I've got a book on them. Yeah, they're old, they're old, some of their older ones, of tombstones they have set.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I never seen it.
Hey Nellie, Ellis Island did the same thing because, when my ancestry
I
came
was gonna
over
say.
from Germany, they were Huber, Huber,
Uh-huh.
and when they got here, it was Hoover, because that's the way you heard it.
In Scotland, Hume is spelled Home, but it's still pronounced Hume. But when they came over here, because whenever they spelled it Home, people would say home, and that's not what it was. So they changed the spelling to Hu. So,
It happened a lot.
and then the other reason is to keep us out of jail.
That worked.
Some of our ancestors couldn't read or write, they didn't
Yeah.
they didn't have a clue how to
Yeah.
spell their names. So the census taker
Yeah.
spelled it his way.
Yeah.
A lot of times too, with women, they weren't allowed to go to school for, you know, a long time. Women were not allowed to learn. The African-American population, same thing, they weren't allowed to learn.
Yeah.
So if they were involved in the record keeping for a family, that, you know, it was tough for them too, so. I have just had the most fun. It's not very often that Jean lets me talk uninterrupted. I'm just kidding. I have a great husband. Okay, anything else before we adjourn for refreshments?
We can have refreshments and come back and.
Sure, and I don't care how long you talk, and I don't care how long you keep me. If you want to ask questions, I'll try my best to answer it, but I'm done as far as the presentation goes.
I have, this is
Wow.
how I have done my genealogy in the past, and then I could just fold it up and take it, and I've got all these
There you go.
names on there, where they were born, when, where they died, who all the siblings are,
Yes,
and that's important, so if anybody wants.
I
to
would
look at the
love
names.
to do something like that, but I gotta tell you, there's so many people on my tree.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Oh,
do it.
well.
Oh, we need to get together.
She's got a bunch of them. I have a whole, and I've formed most of them now.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tape those edges so
The
that,
Yeah.
ones I've already claimed on DAR are getting pretty crappy. But you're welcome to look at them.
what do you think?
Enjoy it.
Good.
I'm gonna go over to the cemetery and write some numbers down. I got,
You know, yeah, that's what they're for.
see, today was Grandpa Noel's birthday.
Oh, is that right? Now that's Mina's.
Maine is dead.